Okay, now let's start to dive in to Tintern Abbey. So, we know from the title, right, the year is what? 1798, right? The year that Wordsworth and Coleridge published lyrical ballads. And where are we? We're in a part of England that is called the Lake District. It's very, very beautiful. I haven't been fortunate enough to visit. I'd love to go. It's worth taking maybe a couple minutes to go to Google Images and do a quick search for Lake District, and then it'll take you to some really beautiful pictures of the Lake District in England. There's gentle rolling hills, lots of scenic views, and this is one of the areas that people would go to for walking tours, and that's what we have happening here. Let's begin. 5 years have passed, 5 summers with the length of 5 long winters. So what does that tell us? Right? This is where we are in the present, right? 5 years before. Right? So what's 5 takeaways? 1798, that's right. So this is before, right, Wordsworth visited this exact spot where he is now. Okay? And again, I hear these waters rolling from their mountain springs with the sweet inland murmur. Once again do I behold these steep and lofty cliffs, which on a wild, secluded scene impress thoughts of more deep seclusion and connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky. Right? So he's recollecting, reflecting present into the past. Once again, I see these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows, little lines of sported wood run wild, these pastoral farms, green to the very door. So he's looking out at the landscape and describing the landscape for us. Though absent long, these forms of beauty have not been to me as is a landscape to a blind man's eye. So in other words, right, if you're a blind man, right, you can't see these things, right? Wordsworth is saying that these beautiful forms are not like that to him. He has been able to see them. How has he been able to see them, you might ask, Mr. K? Well, he's going to tell us. But oft, in lonely rooms amid the din of towns and cities, I have owed to them in hours of weariness sensations sweet, felt in the blood and felt along the heart, and even passing into my pure mind with tranquil restorations. So what happened? Okay, right? So past, present, right? So here he is again, looking out at this landscape. So what happened during these 5 years? What happened? Where did he go? He went to live in the town, live in the city. What was it like? Well, he tells us when he was living in the town in the city, and hours of weariness. It was a grind being stuck in the city. He didn't like being away from nature. So what happened when he was living in the city? He right through his memory, transcendent moment, he was able to recollect visiting where he is now, right? This is the little interim part, right? And so what happened? He had sensations sweet, felt in the blood, and felt along the heart, and passing even into my pure mind with tranquil restorations, feeling too of unremembered pleasure. So in other words, when he was here, right before, he was having transcendent moments, but he didn't know it, right? He didn't know what was going to happen until it did, right? So he was experiencing the sublime, these transcendent moments, such perhaps as may have had no trivial influence on that best portion of a good man's life, his little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. Wow. So this is not something that just a little fleeting thing. Wordsworth is able to take it in. It becomes a physical part of him. Nor less, I trust, get ready guys, to them I may have owed another gift, right? So there's some talking about gifts here. What was the first gift? It made him physically feel better when he was stuck in the city and he remembered that. That's a gift. Another gift of aspect more what? More sublime. So here we have that word of more sublime, that blessed mood in which the burden of the mystery, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lightened, right? So this transcendent moment is able to do what for Wordsworth? It's able to take away the burden of life, heavy and weary weight of all this unintelligible world. Look at how he describes, right, living in the city. It's unintelligible. There's no reason. It doesn't make any sense. So what does he do? He stops and he thinks about that visit in 1793, looking out to where he is now, in which the affections gently lead us on until the breath of this corporeal frame, the body, and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended, we are laid asleep in body and become a living soul. This is transcendence. He's doing his best to describe to us, I think he's doing a really good job, of what a lot of people would say an outer body experience, right? The sublime. Now, there's many different ways that people experience this. Now, for Wordsworth and the Transcendentalists, right, it was through nature. It's why the capital N that we had before. A lot of people who are musicians, they experience the sublime when they're playing music, right? In other words, they're playing music and they're playing a song, in a band performing, or by themselves performing, and then they get to the end of the song and they realize that they're at the end of the song, but they don't remember playing the music. But they obviously did because they're at the end of the song and everybody's clapping, right? Another way to think about the sublime is something, if you watch sports and during a post-game interview, they'll have the star athlete who made a really good play that won the game for his team. And there was like, well, what was it, put the microphone in his face. What was it like? What was it like when you were out there performing? What was it like when you were out there on the stage, on the fields, the court? And the player would say, I don't know, I was in the zone, right? So in other words, he was out of his body. His body was doing these things, but he was kind of looking at himself doing it. This is what Wordsworth is describing to us here with the sublime. It's a transcendental moment. We become a living soul. So this is how, through these transcendental moments, the sublime, that we become alive. While with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. So this power he experiences, the sublime, lets him have a vision in how life works that he was unable to see before. And we're just getting warmed up with Tintern Abbey. So we'll be right back with another video.